Another core area of difference for ASD students is what we call RRIBs, which stands for restricted or repetitive interests and behaviours. So just get you thinking. Think of something embarrassing that you were intensely interested in as a young teenager or maybe 10 to 12 years old. So for most of us, depending on your age, and I'm probably showing mine here, are you thinking, the solar system, dinosaurs, puzzles, tanks, trucks, cars, those sort of things. Basically, restricted and repetitive interests or behaviours are those things, those stages of development for ASD students. And just like all people, you have a certain interest, and you started out doing quite simple things. So maybe if you're interested in cooking, you'd pretend cook, and then eventually you'd start to cook your more basic meals, and then moving on to more complex things. RRIBs are the same thing. If your student has an interest, a real interest, what you want to do is you want to be exploring that as much as possible, and then gradually that interest will develop into something. Eventually the goal would be to have them be professors at a university or something like that, but basically to continue their interest that they had as children or the interest that they had as young adults, and develop that into something quite age appropriate and quite useful for them in their lives going forward. So just quickly, there's two basic types of RRIBs. There's those which we call ego-dystonic, and those that we call ego-systonic. So ego being self, dys meaning not, stonic basically meaning good for. Ego-dystonic RRIBs are not useful or helpful to the person, and the ego-systonic ones are those that are. So in terms of interest, you want to be promoting the ones that are ego-systonic. So if your student does have ego-dystonic RRIBs, what you want to be doing is what we call shaping them. So minimizing them, distracting them, or limiting them to a certain area of their lives. Perhaps when they're doing work, they don't pursue their interests that you think is not necessarily beneficial for them. What you would never do is stop them from doing their interest or stop them from doing something that brings them comfort. Typically, there's a real risk of that interest then becoming something much worse or something much more damaging to the ASD student. Basically, as long as their interest is safe, healthy, and not ego-dystonic, you want to be encouraging it as much as possible and drawing it out. So basically, RRIBs are the key to unlocking the potential of a student with ASD, as they are any student in your class. So again, as with any student, the RRIBs or the interests of the students are those things that most motivate them, and therefore should be front and center in any ILP written for a student with ASD. So just quickly, some common RRIBs that you may or may not be aware of. Magic the Gathering cards, Hearthstone cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, Dungeons and Dragons, board games, dinosaurs, trains, anything with machinery is quite a common interest, and all those sort of things.